Greetings from the Bridge of Spies here at St. James's Park in London. Ukrainian special forces have played a significant role in their defense of their country against Russian attack. One of the reasons Ukrainian special forces have been so effective is Major General Mike Repass, my West Point classmate and friend of over 40 years. Mike was the commanding general of Special Operations Command Europe, and during that time he was responsible for the development and training of special forces in Ukraine as well as in other allied countries in Europe. This is his interview.
Mike, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us in this. What can you describe in a public venue like this about the Special Operating Forces of Ukraine?
The first thing to know about Ukrainian Special Operations is there's multiple versions of them that existed prior to 2014 and even to today. The first one that's of note is those that found in the Ministry of Defense under the Special Operations Command. Also within the Ministry of Defense, they have a military intelligence director with a Special Operations Capable Force known as the GER. It's a very capable force. They do intel-driven operations. Next in the Ministry of Interior is the SBU Alpha. This force is the successor to the KGB. It's a paramilitary force. Imagine the FBI with a very large paramilitary capability. Now, for NATO and the troop contributing nations, we've mainly focused on the Special Operations Command, headquarters, and its forces. NATO support has been coordinated among the nations under their national authorities, but we do that via the Multinational SOF Advisory Team, or MSAT, which has really served to coordinate and deconflict activities, as well as synchronizing operations, activities, and investments along the SOF line of operation. There's a number of national commitments that have been provided by the nations. Along the SOF line, I would say that the heavy commitment is from the US, the UK, and the Baltic states, mainly Poland and Lithuania. So there were a lot of activities going on there prior to the outbreak of the conflict on the 24th of February of this year. I would also say, and Ben, you were directly involved with this, is the multinational effort at the Joint Multinational Training Group Ukraine really brought the conventional forces up to a fighting force that needed to be reckoned with, and is doing the bulk of the fighting that we see now on the ground in Ukraine. I have trained with probably 60 plus nations, to include NATO partners. And I would say these are in the top 10% of nations knowledge-wise at the individual level that I've worked with.
Do you have a sense for the effectiveness of Spetsnaz or any types of Russian special forces that they've attempted to employ?
So SOF is most effective when they are employed against operational strategic problem sets and create conundrums for their opponent. I haven't seen where that has happened on the Russian side. I've seen many instances in reporting where they've been policed up on the streets of Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, other places where they've tried to penetrate and get in there. But they have not had the operational strategic effect that we normally associate with SOF. Just think of SOF in the Afghan early days of coming in, the Rangers parachuting into the airfields and securing airheads, or the Special Forces guys linking up with the regional tribal entities and doing operations against the Taliban. The Russians have no equivalent to that whatsoever, none.
Mike, I've always assumed that the Russian rear area was not really secure, that even though they were operating in the so-called independent oblast of Luhansk and Donetsk, that not necessarily everybody there was real keen to support the Russians or tolerate what was going on. What's your sense about resistance type operations, either that are coming up organically or that maybe are being helped and encouraged by Ukrainian forces?
I think it's widespread in the Russian occupied areas, less so in the two oblasts that they've occupied since 2014 because the security operations have been fairly sophisticated and long-term there to root things out. But early on, the resistance in Russian rear area in the north, around Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv was rather robust. and they were working the logistics lines of the Russians, particularly the crossing points, bridges, railroad bridges, etc. They were doing some interdiction there. Recently, President Zelensky has recognized the potential of the resistance, and he's called on them to help approaching Ukrainian forces in a couple of areas. First off, reporting on Russian activities, and then interdicting their supply lines and their supplies in the rear area. So I'm very impressed with the resilience of the Ukrainian people, particularly their leadership and their government. It's been an inspiration, and it's been very instructive to me as an American that we can learn a lot from the Ukrainians.
Mike, thanks very much.
Thanks, Ben. It's always great to see you, brother.
I hope you found that informative. Huge thanks to my friend and classmate, Mike Repass. I look forward to talking to you next time from a location to be determined.